Well, at the time of this recording, it's early on a Friday morning, and we got the first shift getting ready to race on into the yard. This is the good part about being off on a weekday. You get to sit in bed while everybody else heads on into work. But it's a work day for me because I get to work on my thing. So I'm going to talk about that because I mentioned before about the good hustles and bad hustles. I want to talk a little bit and kind of distinguish between a few terms that's commonly used in conversation. We know what the bad hustle is. I'm not going to go into detail about that. A lot of you already know what the bad hustle is. We're not going to talk about that. But I want to put a little clarity in regards to a hustle and what a player is and what a baller is. Because sometimes people misinterpret those terms, and I guess it just depends on where you live as to what a hustler and a baller and a player is. I'm going to give you my definition of what it is because they're kind of like three different definitions in my world. So I want to break it down to you. Now let's talk about the hustler. There's a good hustler and a bad hustler. You all know what the bad hustlers are. These are the pimps and the drug dealers, and these are the criminals. These are the ones who brainwash themselves to believe, probably because of their upbringing or maybe a bad experience, that, committing crime is the only way to survive. They believe in their mind the only way to survive is to commit criminal acts. So they'll either manipulate situations or people to commit criminal acts in order to survive. They think this is the only way to live is to commit crimes in order to eat, breathe, have a roof over their head. So they'll hustle, manipulate, scheme by way of threat, theft, sometimes bodily harm, murder, abuse, whatever crime it takes in order to live. So it usually involves, in all cases, breaking the law. These are bad hustlers. Now, the good hustlers are the people who may or may not have a regular job, but it's not enough. So what they'll do is they'll pick up a gig on the side, whether it's, utilizing their own talents or doing independent contracting or starting a business on the side in addition to their regular job in order to make the extra money to make a dream come true. And that dream coming true could be a big dream like expanding and building a multi-million-dollar empire or securing a record deal or becoming an athlete or an entertainer or book publisher or, a politician. It could be a huge dream like that, or it could just be the dream of becoming financially free or buying your first home or, becoming a U.S. citizen or something like that. But knowing that your current job is either low paying or you're underemployed and, it's not going to be enough. So you take on this extra venture, whatever the case may be, to get you the extra income that you need in order to achieve that dream. That's the good hustle. These things are legitimate. It requires a little bit extra time and effort that you have. So instead of taking, the attitude of being negative about the fact that you are underpaid and underemployed, you take the extra time that you do have and you use that to your advantage and contribute that and dedicate that towards building up your side hustle, your good hustle. Excuse me. You use that to build up your good hustle so you can be independent and achieve your goal. And eventually, in the future, you can give up your underemployment or your low-paying job and be your own boss. Eventually. It's just a matter of time. You'll be able to achieve that. That's the good hustle. So you're just basically just transferring your energy. You're changing your mindset in regards to, instead of working to make someone else rich, you are changing your mindset to where you're learning how to make yourself rich. You're channeling your energy differently. So, and you're changing your mindset in regards to work. So that's a good thing. So that's what the hustler is. You got the bad hustler and you got the good hustler. So hopefully a lot of you that are listening to me are good hustlers, or you're aspiring to be good hustlers. And good hustlers learn how to try to make as much money in as little time possible, as opposed to making little money in the most time, which is a lot of us do for a job. We're exchanging more time for less money. But when you work for yourself, you exchange less time for more money. So we're learning to do that. That's what good hustlers learn to do. Okay? So with that aside, that's the hustler. This is what players do. Now this is another level. Okay? What players do is they take the revenue as a result of hustling. They take the revenue and they spend it in a way where they take some of the revenue from the hustle and they spend it differently. Now let's say that you got a hustle, but you still have the mentality of that as a person who is an employee. Now if you turn around and you got a hustle and you're making money from the hustle, but you still have the mind of an employee and you're spending it like an employee, then you still can't make a profit and you can't get rich. What you're doing is you're still spending it like an employee would, like on bills and and things like that, and you're not investing. You don't have an investing mindset. Players have an investing mindset. There's no sense of having a good hustle if you don't have an investing mindset. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm learning to develop an investing mindset. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. They'll turn around and they'll get a good hustle and they'll do it for years and realize at the end of the day they want to give up the hustle and wind up going back to work for someone else, because they claimed that the good hustle wasn't any good, when the truth is that they weren't taking the profits from the good hustle and they weren't investing any of it. When you decide to change how you're going to work, which is good, you also need to change how you're going to spend the money from that work. So what players do is they take the money from the good hustle and they invest it. They could do it many ways. They could invest it back into the good hustle, which is a good thing. They could invest it in real estate or stocks or metals or cryptos or whatever it is that they know where that money is going to grow. And I'm going to give you a case in point in this. How many businesses have you seen where someone has a good product or a service and they may do it for years, but you have not seen their business grow very much from the time that they started the business? They're still in business, okay, which is good, but their business has not grown very much over the course of maybe 5 or 10 years. And you're wondering why. It's because they have not taken the profits from that business and have not invested it in a vehicle to make the profits grow. They've just taken that money and just put it back into the business because they did not develop an investment mindset with the profits. They just took and suck it into business, suck it in expenses. And see, that's what happens to us when we work a job. When we work a job, the purpose of a job is to take care of our expenses, right? Okay. So when we start working for ourselves, okay, we still thinking in the mindset excuse me, as an employee. So we're thinking employee pay expenses. So when we're thinking in the mindset of employee, okay, we're going to take this money and we're going to take care of expenses. So we're taking that money and we're paying for expenses, but we're not thinking along the lines of investing into something where that money can grow. So it's good that if you are making money from your side hustle, to utilize some of that money, whether it's 5% or 10%, and set it aside in a vehicle where that money can grow. And something that you can't touch. It could be something as small as like an online savings account where you could have like 5 or 10%, where it could be an online savings account where you do not have the debit card and do not have a way where you could transfer the money in or out. Just let the money just go there and just let it grow. Moderate interest rate. And I know it's not a whole lot, but just something that you just can't touch. At least it's just somewhere where it can just go and you could just forget about it. Because that's a way that that can happen. That's what players do. Players take the profits from what they earn and they invest in it where the money can grow. They set it aside, let it grow, and they forget about it. And they usually do it in more than one way. And that's another thing that they do. They don't put all their eggs in one basket when they come to investing in different things. Because they already know in the back of their mind, if this one thing doesn't work, then I have this other thing to look at to take up the slack, and this other thing. They don't focus on just that one thing. When it comes to business and business ventures, they diversify. That's what players do. They diversify. People in the record business do it all the time. Have you ever heard of artists that go into the business, they're a performer 1 year, and then all of a sudden 5 years later they're into producing and directing? There's a reason for that. Because a good performer, they try to learn the business. They realize, okay, yes, I'm a hot commodity because I'm a good performer and I love to perform. But if they take the time to learn the business, they also understand if they go into producing and directing, they could also learn behind the scenes that they can also mentor and they can promote other artists and performers and make revenue that way. That's another income stream. They can learn the business, and that's another income stream. You can promote other artists. You can have 4 or 5 other artists. You can create a label, which is another income stream. And you can have 4 or 5 other artists underneath you, which is 4 or 5 other income streams as well, just in case things get slow for you. And that's nothing against you personally. You are an artist. But you have to understand you're dealing with the general public. So the general public is kind of fickle. For any reason, they might love you today and hate you tomorrow. You don't know how humans are. People are fickle. Or it could be a situation where you might not be able to perform because of a personal matter. What if you get sick and can't perform? What if you have a personal matter that happens in your family where you can't perform? Then, that's a leave of absence. Your money is interrupted. Your time is interrupted. So that's an interruption in your income. So you have to have a fallback. But if you're a producer or a director and you have a label, then you have these other artists that are performing underneath your label and you have another stream of income. So you have to consider all these other things. So these are players. Players take their income, invest it in other vehicles, so the money goes to work for them while they are doing something else. Okay, that's what players do. Okay, players take money that they earn and make the money work for them behind the scenes. That's where you hear these terms about passive income. Okay, that's passive income. Passive income is where money works for you while you do something else. Okay, all right. So we talked about the hustlers. We talked about the players. Okay, let's talk about the ballers. Okay. The ballers, these are the ones who are harvesting the fruits. They harvest the fruits. These are basically the ones who are just showing they're reaping the harvest. Okay, and this could be a good thing or a bad thing because you got fake ballers and you got real ballers. Okay, and in my book, the real ballers are the ones that are balling, but you can't see that they're balling. These are the ones that are low key. The fake ballers are the ones who look like they're balling, but they really aren't. And this put me in the mind of that situation of that program they used to have on TV, and I don't know if they still have it on now, to be honest with you. It used to be a show called MTV Cribs. There was a big expose that was done about that show a long time ago. Well, there used to be a show called MTV Cribs. I don't know if it's still on now. Y'all let me know in the comments. They used to do this show, and there was a show before that that kind of that kind of inspired MTV Cribs back in the 80s and 90s called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, where every week they used to go into the mansions and the plantations and everything of someone famous, used to show the beautiful house and everything that was in there, and everybody was just supposed to ooh and ah and everything else. Then later on, MTV came out with a little celebrity version of the same thing called MTV Cribs, of all the celebrity music people and entertainment people, and you go into their homes and everything else. Well, come to find out, a lot of those people actually didn't live in those homes. They were homes that were owned by the label. And then that's when we started to find out about the record industry. A lot of these people didn't live in those homes. They didn't own those homes. They were homes that were owned by the record industry that people were allowed to live in as long as they were able to fulfill their obligation with the record label. A lot of these labels will have homes all over the place for the artists to live in while they were on contract. However, they were not homes that the artists owned. The deed was not in the artist's name. They were homes for all the artists. Like, for instance, if you had a home over in San Joaquin Valley, and I'm just naming a place, just randomly, and you see that home, and artist XYZ is showing off the home on MTV Cribs, like it belongs to them, driving the fancy car and everything else, you're thinking that home belongs to them. Come to find out, it belongs to 123 record label. It's actually their home. It's just a home that the artist can live in while they fulfill their 2-year contract. And when the 2 years is over, the artist can't live there anymore unless it's renewed. Well, 6 months later, ABC artist is living in the same home, and then all of a sudden, by mistake, MTV Cribs goes over to the same home and see there's other artists in there. So there was an expose. I don't know what happened, but I think the same home was shown for 2 different people. I don't know what happened. But anyway, like I said, I don't think the show is being aired anymore. But it was exposed that the artist actually didn't own the home, that it belonged to either the film label or the record label, and they kind of scrapped the show. So the fake ballers do that. Now, there are some rich people who are flashy rich and they actually own what they own, but it's a small percentage of them. There's just a handful of them. Some of you know some of these big name people and they actually do have this. But a lot of the real ballers actually don't have to show what they have, and for good reason, because they don't want to be targeted for theft. They don't want to be targeted for scammers. A lot of people who do have billions and billions of dollars really don't have to show that. They have a lot of their money invested in a lot of real estate and property and things like that. They really don't put a whole lot of money in clothing and wearable objects and things like that. They're very low-key when it comes to their clothing and things like that. I mean, they wear high-quality clothing, but when it comes to, like a whole bunch of flashy things that draw a lot of attention, they don't do that because they don't want to be targeted for any harm and danger. And that makes a lot of sense. It's for security purposes, and that makes sense. So, I hope that brings a lot of clarity to a few things. I'm going to talk a little bit later about how some businesses actually thrive because having been exposed to a lot of businesses, I'm learning a few things about how some businesses make it and how some don't, and it has a lot to do with diversification. So I kind of hope this serves someone, and I hope you all have peace and love and protection on this day.